Line's good.
Never on.
Whoa.
Hard. Hardly.
Come on, Brent. Line's good. Got real close.
I hear high, right?
Try and hit 2/3.
Have they saved it for her? Yes, they have.
Ooh, welcome to Game of Stones, everybody. I am Sean Graham Scott, alongside, as always, hello, Scott.
Sean, I want to be the first to wish you a happy Family Day.
Oh, thank
here
you.
in Ontario.
We're
We're family.
Yeah.
And so we decided what better way to spend Family Day than podcasting together.
Absolutely. It's a big week. Not only is it a holiday week, not only here in Ontario, but in most parts of the country. Today is a holiday as we record this on a Monday night. But Scott, on Friday, Vic Router is going to go into the booth. He's going to spin around. He's going to take his glasses off, and he's going to emerge as super broadcaster. It's been almost a year. We missed the Women's World Championship. We missed the Men's World Championship. We missed the Canada Cup. We missed the Continental Cup. We have missed 4 Vic Router events. But Scott, on Friday night at 8:30 Eastern Time, Vic Router is back on the air calling curling.
Nothing better, Sean. Nothing better. And in the interim, hopefully he's had time for his hips to heal. His knees, all parts of Vic, his voice. It's going to be that buttery smooth for this first event of the year. I can't wait.
It's going to be great. I'm so excited just for the dulcet tones of Vic Router on Friday night. It is going to be great. The game, TSN hasn't confirmed this, but I'm calling it. The game will be Carrie Anderson against Mackenzie Zacharias. It's going to be fun. And I'm so excited to have curling back. A month ago, I didn't think this was going to happen. Hell, 2 weeks ago, I'm not sure I was convinced that was going to happen. But the decals are down on the ice. The ice is being made. It's not quite ready for the players. Practice starts on Thursday. It really, the teams, some of them are already there. Others are in transit as we speak. It's happening, Scott. They've seemed to, at this point at least, have been able to pull off the logistics of it and the organization of it. Now it's just a case of, can we get through the next 2 months?
Yeah, it's pretty incredible, right? I think when it was announced, we were all rightly skeptical and thought, oh boy, I don't know. Is this really going to work? Is it not? Who knows? And like you say, we're on the precipice. So as long as we don't have, somebody get sick between now and the start of the event or, during the event.
Yep.
Looks like we might pull this off.
Yeah. And once teams are in, they're in. And for 4 of the teams, which we'll talk about, they're going to be there for a while. And, but it should be a lot of fun. Hopefully everyone gets there safely. All the testing is done once everyone arrives, and nobody catches anything en route to Calgary, and we can have a great event that, and if everyone goes in healthy, even without like a flu bug or a cold bug or anything like that, maybe we might have a healthier Scotties than we have normally.
Yeah. Normally, I mean, we've seen this many times, a flu bug go through the field, everybody's shaking hands, doing events with the crowd, with the media. We'll talk a bit about that more as we get into it, but this is the chance to be I would venture to guess, the only perfectly healthy Scotties.
Yeah, so we are
history.
certainly rooting for that. And so we're going to go through the field. We'll talk about every team, all 18 teams that are heading to Calgary for this event, talk about who we think can win, who we don't think can win, what we expect out of the 2 pools. So let's get right into the 2021 Scotties Tournament of Hearts, an event that 3 months ago didn't look like it was going to happen, but here we are for the second time ever. It will be a full parity between men's and women's on the pay scale. First place is worth $100,000. Second place worth $60,000. Third place, $40,000. Those teams that make it to the championship pool get $15,000. Those who don't make it to the championship pool get $2,500 for their efforts. So, Scott, this actually, we talked about it last week a little bit, that if you are in a situation where you're the fourth qualifier out of your pool, you don't really have a chance of making the playoffs. But let's say there's a tiebreaker to get into the championship pool. Essentially, it's a $12,500 cash game that you're playing.
Yeah, no small potatoes for
No.
that game for sure. And so, like we've seen, it's important for these players to want to, make it into that championship pool, not only for the pride, but for the money. And this year, I would say more than ever, that money is going to be very important for these teams that are upending their lives,
Yep.
more so than usual, to attend this curling bubble and try to like make it worth their while, I'll say.
Yeah, absolutely. So the way it works, the format, if you are unfamiliar, 2 pools. This year, there will be 9 teams in each pool. You play a round robin in your pool. So that is 8 games. Top 4 from each pool move on to the championship pool, where you cross over. So in the championship pool, you will play the 4 teams from the opposing pool that you have not played in round robin. That gets you 4 more games. That gets you to a total of 12. Out of those 8 teams in the championship pool, top 3 will go forward. Team in first place straight to the final. The other 2 teams will play in a semifinal. Tiebreakers, of course, if necessary. So a little different from what we've seen in the past with the page playoff system. Only the top 3 getting in. That has some serious effects as we look at the draw and look at the teams in there. So between the 2 pools, Scott, just broad strokes, did you notice at all one pool being stronger than the other?
Honestly, no, I didn't.
Really?
No, I don't see one pool being stronger than the other. I think there's 5 teams in each pool that could make the championship pool.
Okay.
And, for 4 spots, I think there's 5 in both. But obviously, Sean, you did see
Yeah,
one
I
pool
think
that was
if this
stronger.
was like on the schoolyard, that Pool A would try to steal Pool B's lunch money.
You think?
Yeah, and like shove it in a locker. I think Pool A is, and we'll talk about how many teams we think we can win. I think Pool A is definitely the stronger pool, certainly at the top end of the teams who are serious threats to win. I think so. I do think that Pool A has a strength advantage over Pool B, but they are certainly at the back end, the middle of it. They are pretty even. It'll be fun to watch some of those games between those teams that are fighting for the championship pool spots to get that extra $12,500. But yeah, I think Pool A does have some strength. So we'll talk about the pools and who we think we can go through, but just a couple other little fun tidbits, or at least I think they're fun for this event. Scott, we have 27 women making their debut at the national championship this week. Now, part of that is that you have 2 teams that are in their entirety making their debut at the Scotties, but 27, that's a pretty high number for Scotties. We do tend to see a lot of returnees at these events. So this is great. All the debuts, that'll be a lot of fun to watch.
Yeah, and this is also a product of having, 2 extra teams in the field.
Yeah.
That has allowed for a lot of these players to be making their debuts as well, that we're going to see with the wildcard 2 and wildcard 3 teams. But yeah, always fun to see new faces on our TVs, new names, to go into our curling Rolodexes, to think about, the future of curling. We're going to see a lot of young players. We're going to see some new players who are on the older side as well. So lots to see at this event. I think we're sort of witnessing the changing of the guard in a sense, with a lot of the younger teams moving up. We're seeing some of the older teams, maybe this is getting towards the end. This quadrennial might be the last one together, but we've also got some household names and blasts from the past that will be at this field too. So something for everybody, I'd say.
Yeah. So speaking of blast from the past, Scott, what do you think the average age of the oldest team in the field is? And do you think you could guess the oldest team in the field?
Well, Sean, I do know the oldest team in the field because I looked it up.
Okay. So the oldest team is Yukon Laura Eby. Her team is the oldest one in the field at 50. Youngest team in the field, I assume you know this too, Scott, then it is, unsurprisingly, I think you would have guessed this if you hadn't looked it up, Mackenzie Zacharias and her team, the youngest in the field, wild card 2, 20.5 years of age. So just to make Team Yukon feel old, if Mackenzie Zacharias's average team age doubled, then Team Yukon would still be 10 years older.
Team Yukon would still be able to babysit them.
Average age of all participants in the field is 32. So as you say, Scott, a bit of a shift in the overall age, the average age of teams in the field. I think it does tend to skew just a hair older than that in normal years. And in terms of records, Scott, there are a couple records to watch. We'll talk about them a little bit as we go. One record in particular that I am going to guarantee gets broken over the next week. Yes, Jennifer Jones is 2 wins behind Colleen Jones for the all-time record of Scotties victories. She has 150 wins at the Scotties. Colleen Jones currently has the record at 152. I do not think that Jennifer Jones is going to go 2-6 in pool play. I think she'll go at least 3-5 and get to 153 wins and be the all-time record holder for Scotties wins. Scott, do you second my guarantee?
Sean's bold predictions brought to you by yeah, I think it would be a huge surprise if she didn't reach that milestone this week.
Yeah, it would be a stunner. It would have to be like she gets a positive test on her way to Calgary or something, which of course we don't hope for. That's
no,
right? If she passes if she passes the test, she gets in. She's going to win 3 games.
Yeah.
So Scott, out of the 18 teams in the field, how many do you think can win the 2021 Scotties Tournament of Hearts?
Well, Sean, this year is a little bit different, as we'll talk about as we go along, right? Because there's not going to be the usual trappings that go along with a national championship. You're not going to have your Q&A in the patch with Stu. You're not going to have your autograph sessions. You're not going to have the media, the media commitments that you might have at other events. So, then there's teams that you say, well, it's their first time there. They can't win because they've never done it. They've never had a week of those kind of commitments. It's a long week. Even with just the pool play, it's going to be a long week, right? It's going to be Friday to Thursday of pool play. Yeah. So, usually you would discount those younger teams. And you know what, Sean? I'm still going to discount them. I think there's 5 teams that can win this event.
Okay, 5. I have 4. So I assume we have the same top 4 of Canada, Manitoba, Ontario, wildcard 1.
Yeah.
So who's your 5th? Who else do you think can win?
So my 5th is Alberta. I think Alberta could win, but they are solidly 5th out of that list.
Yeah, so I've broken it down. So I have the 4, as I mentioned, Canada, Manitoba, and Ontario, wildcard 1 as teams that I think can win. And then I have this other category of teams that maybe because of the circumstances could threaten potentially. And in that category, I put Alberta, wildcard 2, BC, and PEI as teams that it's a weird year. No one's really played that much. They could be a threat, particularly if you look at maybe Suzanne Burt, who has been able to play. She had a provincial championship. She's been able to play, get some games in. So maybe this is a year where something fun like that happens. But overall, I think if you're looking at the field, and we've seen this over the past few years on the women's side in Canada, and I think around the world, it's not quite the same situation. Like internationally, I think the men's field is pretty top heavy. Whereas in Canada, it's a little more wide open. On the women's side, it's the opposite. I think the global field is pretty wide open, but in Canada, it gets pretty top heavy. So I think when we get to the Brier in a few weeks, we'll see more teams that we say, quote unquote, could win versus what we see on the women's side, where it does have to be, there is this concentration at the top of the women's game in Canada.
Absolutely. And looking at the pools and the teams, as you say, the ones that are the contenders really stand out. And I do think there are, like I said, some teams that could maybe come up and challenge, but I don't really expect it. So let's go through the teams and see like why they could win and what will stop them from winning.
All right, let's do it. Let's start with Pool A, because Pool A has your defending Scotties champion, the only Scotties champion to not win a game at a world championship.
Yeah,
Of course, they didn't get the chance to play, but they're also undefeated at a world championship. So
exactly,
they got that going for them. So it is, of course, Carrie Anderson and her team that are coming in as the defending champions. Of course, last year beating Rachel Homan in the final. In the extra end, Carrie Anderson makes the draw to the button to win that game. That team last year, Scott, really just ran through the field. Only had 2 losses last year. A game to New Brunswick in which they gave up the 6, or was it a 7 to Andrea
7.
Crawford? Yeah, the weird game, giving up the big end there. And then they lost to Jennifer Jones in the championship pool. And of course, the narrative around Carrie Anderson for a long time was that Jennifer Jones would just beat up on Carrie Anderson. And Jennifer Jones' record is very, very good against Carrie Anderson. But if you isolate the last couple seasons, Carrie Anderson had started to shift it a little bit. And she comes out and beats Jennifer Jones in the playoffs last year. So here we have the situation. This team, we saw them when they first formed in the fall of 2018, really just come out hot, just taking the curling world by storm. Nobody anywhere ever could sustain that level of play, but they've had a couple good showings at the Scotties, obviously having won last year. I think expectations are going to be high for this team because Carrie Anderson has really evolved as a player, similar to what we've seen other players who come in who are primarily hit players who can throw the high, hard one. Carrie Anderson has started to really master the soft stuff, the draws. This is a team that obviously you have to take very seriously, and a team that I would be surprised if we don't see them in the playoffs.
Well, for sure. And so we'll talk about this a little more as we go, but I think talent is going to be sort of the deciding factor at this year's Scotties, where you could say, oh, Scott, that's dumb. It's always talent. But the teams that play a lot more tend to have an advantage over teams that play less, but might be more talented. I'd say the exception would be Krista McCarville, who we love on this podcast. But this year with, all of these teams having pretty much no curling, a few, maybe a Bonspiel or 2 here and there, I think this is where talent is what's going to be the real separator in this field. And Team Anderson has as much talent as anybody in the field. One interesting note that Shannon Burchard is looking for her 3rd Scotties title in 3 appearances. Never lost, Sean. Shannon Burchard has never lost the Scotties. When she goes, she picks up rings. So, so yeah, something to look for there. But obviously, this team will be near the top of the heap at the end of the week, should everything go according to plan.
Yeah, 100%. I think when you look at what they're going to be pushing for this team, I think it's a win or bust almost for them, and that's how good they are. And it's one of those things that they're at that level now. So it'll be fun to see how they respond as Team Canada. We haven't, of course, seen them as Team Canada, as I mentioned. And another fun thing here is that Heather Nedwin is going to be their coach this year. So this is a situation where we'll talk about some of the coaches. There are some fun coaches in this field. And there's a few who I want to, we love hearing the players. It's great to hear the players. Let's have a coach mic'd up game.
Ooh.
And I want one of those games to be Heather Nedwin. Just leave it on. Just let it ride.
Yeah. What would the over under on ship balls be?
Well, it depends if she knows that it's live the whole time or not.
Pretty good.
So, and when we look at their schedule too, it's a little hard at the start. Mentioned that opener against Mackenzie Zacharias. Then they get Carrie Galusha in the second game on Saturday afternoon, and then Beth Peterson, wild card 3, on Sunday morning. So it not the easiest schedule for them opening up, I don't think, in this field compared to what you could have. But their two hardest games are at the end of that initial pool play. So Alberta in draw 15 on Wednesday night, and then Thursday with Ontario and Rachel Homan. So if you can say go 2-1 through those first 3, then you have a chance against Jill Brothers and Yukon to build that up. So if you can get into those final 2 games where you're 5-1, then you're in really good shape.
Yeah. So we'll look to see them come the weekend for sure.
Yeah, so let's move down to the next ranked team in this field. It is Ontario and Rachel Homan making it back to the Scotties once again. Kind of remarkable how often they've been there, given how young this team is. They pretty much have been Team Ontario for a decade now, with a couple of exceptions, of course. And what's remarkable to think about with Rachel Homan is that, Scott, she has played in the final of the last 3 Scotties she has made it to. And the only time in the last 4 years where she did not play in a Scotties final, it's because she was at the Olympic Games.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Pretty remarkable, right? Sort of quietly becoming the new Jennifer Jones of curling, being there all the time. That said, they've only won 1 of those last 3 finals they've been in. So, losing the last 2 years on the last shot, basically, to Chelsea Carey and Carrie Anderson. This team made a shakeup in the offseason, looking for, maybe some of that edge, some of that desire to come back. So, we've seen Rachel Homan replace a player before in 2014-15 season. So they added Joanne Courtney, and notably the team played pretty poorly that year. They didn't win any Grand Slams, lost the final of the Canada Cup, went 7-4 at the Scotties, and lost in the playoffs in the 3-4 game. So with adding a new player in Sarah Wilkes to play second this year, Joanne Courtney's also going to move down and play lead, which we haven't seen her play in ever, I don't think.
Correct.
So my fear with this team is that, they haven't had the time to, feel out how the lineup's going to play, to get to know everybody's role on the team. They're professional players and will have had lots of meetings about it, but until you're, out on the ice and doing it, it's a lot easier said than done. Now, Sean D added, what do you think about that point, first of all?
No, I think you're right. It is tough to come together. I think one of the things that happened back when Joe and Courtney joined the team and that they really struggled with was the release, and Joanne Courtney learning how this team throws, because there is a very distinct way that they like to throw, the rotation that they want. And it took her a while to learn it, and she has learned it. But I think there's a bit of a consensus amongst observers in the curling world that of the 4 throwers, that Joanne Courtney would be the 4th ranked of those. Best sweeper, probably in the world, or arguably in the world. I would say in Canada for sure, arguably in the world, that she has so much value, but in putting her into that lead spot does provide some leeway potentially for her as a thrower.
It's the shots are a little more consistent, right? So they are important. We all know how important the lead stones are, especially late in a game, but they're more consistent, and you can, you've played lead for a long time. You know what you're throwing. It's a lot easier to step in the hack and throw it.
Yeah, I don't even need to skip most of the time.
Yeah, exactly.
Just go.
Exactly. So then, Sean, the other wrinkle for Team Homan, is, of course, that Rachel is expecting
Yes.
and due in April. So, just a couple months away. How that will affect her play, who knows, right? We've seen her curl while pregnant before, but not
this
this
pregnant.
far along, I'll say. Yeah, this pregnant is sort of weird because like you're pregnant or not, but this far along, for sure. So that's sort of the other wild card for Team Homan. Yeah. So what do you think about that?
It'll be interesting to see how it plays out. I don't think it's as big of a deal, if that's a way to say it, as if it was a front end player. But I'll admit this on the show, Scott. I've never been pregnant.
Whoa, breaking news.
I know. So I don't know. And, that Sportsnet did a great study or a great article on this last year. And it was about after pregnancy, post-pregnancy for athletes and their return to play, and how for each woman it's different on what the pace of your return to play is and how long it takes you to feel comfortable again. And recover some of the strength that you can lose in a pregnancy. And sort of the offshoot of that I took away from, in addition to everything in there, is that certainly every pregnancy is going to be different as well. And how each woman responds to their pregnancy is going to change, and probably even pregnancy to pregnancy. So it's really a case where we don't know how Rachel Homan is feeling and what the preparation has been. But if there's one thing that I know about Rachel Homan and I know about Team Homan, is that if she felt that she was compromised in any way, that she wouldn't play.
Yep.
So
that's very true.
So if she's out there, she feels comfortable, not only physically, but also with the state of her game, and that the pregnancy is not going to interfere with her play at all. And Rachel Homan is not only is she a great player who's been around for a long time. If you look at what her background is, her educational background, as someone who's involved in training and physical therapy, that kind of work that she's done, she obviously knows her body better than anybody else. So I'm not going to sit here and try to act like I have any idea. And I'm just going to say, if she's out there as a 100% player, and I would not want to play against her.
That's very fair for you to say that you don't want to play against her. And of course, like us, two dudes don't need to explain pregnancy to anybody. There's people much more qualified than us. So those are my question marks for this team, Sean. That said, one of the top teams in the world, bringing Danielle Inglis along as their fifth, which we talked about last week. It'll be fun to have her on the bench. And the biggest part, Sean, the coach.
Yeah. Randy Ferbey.
Ferbey.
Yeah. Ooh. He is going to be on the bench. So when Team Ontario plays Team Canada, just don't even worry about the players, TSN. Just a Ferbey, Netowin running commentary on the bench. If Dave's there in the building, if he's somehow in the bubble, give him a mic too. Why not? But a Heather Netowin, Randy Ferbey just running commentary, that would be, give Vic the afternoon off. It'd be great.
Yes, I have just followed Randy Ferbey on Twitter @retiredcurler. So
yeah, and you know what his job is, Scott, is listed occupation.
Retired has-been curler.
No, he is a representative for Everest Funeral Concierge Services.
Oh, that's in the media guide. Right.
Yeah.
That's wow. Right. Huh. Yeah. How can you imagine Randy Ferbey comforting you in your
I can't
time of need?
No, I can't. I really can't.
I think it'd be good.
Maybe. I mean, he'd be good at telling your spouse to go, or your wife to go in one room and your girlfriend to go in a different room. If you've seen that episode of the Loser series about the Pat Ryan teams that Randy Ferbey was on, but yeah, he has a lot of stories, and certainly he and Heather Netowin would go way back, with Dave Netowin being on the Ferbey teams, of course. So they would have some stories to tell, I'm sure.
Oh yeah, it would be great.
So the next team is the de facto host this year, I suppose, although the host team doesn't matter as much with no fans in the stands. It is Laura Walker, Team Alberta. Laura Walker, this will be her first event back since giving birth last year to her son, along with husband Jeff Walker, welcomed their first child this year. So exciting time in the Crocker Walker household. So she is returning to play. But as we mentioned last week, there is a change on this team. Nadine Scotland is expecting her first child. So she is opted out of the bubble, which gives us Rochelle Brown as the lead for Team Alberta. But of course, Rochelle Brown does not come alone. So Dana Ferguson is going to be the alternate on this team. So that'll be a lot of fun to have Rochelle Brown, Dana Ferguson back in the bubble. The rest of the team is the same. Always great when Kate Cameron is in an event. One of the players who, when she gets going, can carry a team on her own. She's kind of like Mark Nichols in that way at the third position. If they're hot, you're not going to beat that team on that day. And a team last year, Scott, struggled a bit at the first time at a Scotties as the skip. Started to play a little better as the week went on. So this is where, when you talked that this is a team that you think could win, I think they're in that maybe category. I'm not quite sure, but we have seen teams come back for a second time at these events, really understanding what it's all about and going on a deep run. So it's certainly possible with this team. So what do you expect?
So yeah, what I'm expecting is, like you said, for Kate Cameron to be the difference for this team. Of course, how Laura Walker is going to respond to playing after giving birth. You see our previous comments on, we don't know what that's all about, but that's going to be a factor for sure. But if Kate Cameron shows up and plays the way she played in the 2017 Scotties as Team Manitoba, like, they have the skills to go. And when I said earlier about the skill versus, the teams that play a lot, I think this team is one of the teams that has the skills to be able to put it all together. Will they do it? Maybe not, but I really like their chances. So you've got that pedigree of Kate Cameron, and I really like Rochelle Brown and Dana Ferguson coming in with their championship pedigree, sort of giving some experience to that team that earned a little bit last year, but still looking for a little bit more. I think that'll be a real advantage, and I really like their chances this week.
Yeah. So, and let me just sort of correct what I said last week or earlier about this team. So they struggled late in the week. They got off to a great start.
Mm-hmm.
They were 3-0 last year and then lost their next four. Sorry, I had that backwards. So they go 3-4, don't make it into that championship pool. And the struggles that they had later in the week is as the competition got harder. So they went 3-0 against Nunavut, Quebec, New Brunswick, and then they lose to Saskatchewan, Canada, Northern Ontario, and Manitoba. So you saw as their schedule changed, so did their fortunes, but they had some tight games. Lost to Canada by 2, 7-5. That's how they lost to Saskatchewan, same score. 1 point game to Krista McCarville and Northern Ontario. So it's a situation where they can play with all these teams, and they've had an opportunity to, if not necessarily play together, be around each other through this time. So the more you can, especially with Kate Cameron, who was new to the team last year, the four players coming together, working together for the first time, just having that chance to spend time together, learn the communication, the other person's cues when they're frustrated, just knowing people better can help, in addition to the second time through playing together. So I do think that they should be a shoo-in for the championship pool. This, Scott, I think of all the teams in the field, is the team that gets hurt the most without a Page playoff. I think if we had a Page playoff, they would be threatening for that 3-4 game if things sort of go the way we would expect them to. Not having that, I think they're the ones who hurt the most.
Yeah, that's fair to say. I think, looking at last year's field compared to this year's field, I think the Northern Ontario team, is weaker without Krista McCarville there. And I think that Saskatchewan, Sherry Anderson shows up and wins. But I think arguably they're a bit weaker, as is Nova Scotia, who we'll get to. So I think those are the three spots that Walker would be looking to leap over those teams to make it into the championship pool.
I agree. And like I said, I'd be stunned if they don't make it into that pool. So, so I think I think we're both on the same page that those three teams, Canada, Alberta, Ontario, we would expect into the championship pool.
I would expect, yeah.
So that means that for what our expectations are, there's one spot left. And Scott, there are 6 teams left in this pool. So let's go to the next ranked team. Your defending world junior champion, Mackenzie Zacharias, making her debut at the Scotties. Last year, ran through the field at the Canadian Juniors, a perfect 11-0 record at that event, winning the world championship. Did lose a couple of games in that event, but we can excuse that because they're world champions.
Exactly.
So they come through. They will be here at the Scotties for the first time as wild card 2. Scott, here's what I'll say about this team. I think they'll win a Scotties or Mackenzie Zacharias, probably not in this this lineup of a team, just given the way teams change. But I think Mackenzie Zacharias will win a Scotties at some point in her career. I don't think it's 2021 though.
I agree. And I mean, we're here to make bold predictions. I think she might win a lot of Scotties, Sean, if she sticks with curling. Really great player. You saw her poise, there at the World Championships last year. Carly Burgess moved to Manitoba for her last year of junior eligibility to play with Mackenzie Zacharias, and she was a big part of the success that this team had. A former Canadian junior curling champion in her own right out of Nova Scotia, 2018 and 2016, with Mary Fay, I believe. So really great curling pedigree here in the back end. And this team's played together. The front end is 19 and 20. So like they still have junior eligibility if they want to play. Emily Zacharias plays second, the sister of Mackenzie. So, the momentum of keeping the team together is great. I think this will be amazing learning experience. I think, like I said earlier, if this was a regular Scotties event with fans and all that, it might be a little overwhelming. The bright lights, big stage might be overwhelming, but the way that it's set up, it's not super different. I don't think it's going to be super different from, a Canadian juniors event where, there's usually fans, but not that many, depending where it is. So, that could be to their advantage. And given that they've played together before and that they really have no expectations from people on the outside, I'm sure the majority of Canadian curling fans won't be expecting anything from them. They could catch lightning in a bottle and, come out the gates, be 4-0, and us be thinking, oh, maybe this team could make some noise in the championship pool. What do you think of that?
Yeah, 4-0 might be a little tough given that their first game is against Team Canada. Then they get on Saturday afternoon, they get Laura Walker. So a tough draw out of the gate for Mackenzie Zacharias. And then you get Yukon Northwest Territories back to back. So if you can come out of there 3-1, I think you're in great shape. 2-2, I think you'll be fine as well as we move forward through the pool. And just to clean up, Scott, what you said about Carly Burgess, did win a gold medal with Mary Fay back in 2016 and a gold medal in 2018 at the Canadian and World Juniors with Caitlin Jones.
Right. The other Nova Scotia junior curling world champion.
Yes. So she is a 3-time Canadian and world junior champion
with 3 different skips. That's pretty crazy.
3 different skips. Yeah. And has moved to Winnipeg from Truro, Nova Scotia. But I mean, she's listed as a Dal student living in Winnipeg. So that's a 2021 sort of thing.
So Sean, what do you think? Winnipeg upgrade from Truro or no?
Not if you're going to Dal. It's not.
Yeah. I love Truro. Nova Scotia is great.
Nova Scotia, love Nova Scotia. And one of the things that I love out of the media guide all the time, Scott, she's 22 years old, born in 1998. How many years curled?
23.
No, she didn't go full gunner on us.
Okay.
20 years curled
Wow.
for Carly Burgess. Yeah.
Been at it.
Yeah. And she also won a gold medal with Mary Fay at the Youth Olympics back in 2016.
Wow.
So went undefeated at that event. So she has a very strong pedigree, of course, as does Mackenzie Zacharias as the gold medalist at the World Juniors last year. So this team, yeah, certainly poised to make a statement this week. So we'll see if they can get that fourth spot in the championship pool. The other team that I think they'll probably be competing with is a team that we haven't really seen at the national level. No Canada Cups, I believe first Scotties appearance, Scott, for Beth Peterson coming in as wildcard team number 3. They were the biggest Suzanne Burt fans west of my apartment during the PEI provincial playdowns, and maybe even east of my apartment during those playdowns. Because if Suzanne Burt had lost the PEI provincials, this spot would have gone to Team Burt. But of course, Suzanne Burt wins. So Beth Peterson makes her appearance at the Scotties as wildcard team number 3. What do you expect from this squad, which is not only wildcard team number 3, but also Manitoba team number 5?
Yeah. I guess we can talk about the uniforms there at the end, but so they are the wild card team, and as you mentioned, the 5th Manitoba team. This is insane. Their team doesn't have any Scotties experience at the back end with Beth Peterson and Jenna Loader, but Jenna Loader does have experience, at other national events. I believe the Canada Cup she played in,
and a pre-trials too. Yeah, the 2013 pre-trials with Barb Spencer, and the Canada Cup with Kathy O back in 2012.
Yeah, and won a gold medal at the juniors playing with Caitlin Laws, 2009, 2008. So some experience there at national levels. Brittany Tran is playing lead. She played in the Northwest Territories for a year with Carrie Galusha, and was at the Scotties 2 years ago in Sydney, also as a women's worlds, or a junior women's worlds, playing with Jocelyn Peterman in 2012. So, a pretty good pedigree there. The thing is, they're pretty new at the Scotties. The same things go for what we talked about for wildcard 2. Will they be able to catch lightning in a bottle? Maybe.
Maybe.
The big thing I think about this team that I've heard, the chatter, and the longest resume of anybody on their team is their alternate, Kathy O.
Yeah.
The
only tragedy is that Team Manitoba is in the other pool. The only tragedy here.
We've got to root for them to make that championship pool then, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
I think I put 7 exclamation points after Kathy O in my notes.
We love Kathy O. It's just, it'll be great to have Kathy O there. The Kathy O will be somebody who can guide this team through the process. But as we've seen time and time again, that experience, you can't really replicate this in any other way. You just have to go through it. And, the juniors is a bit of an approximation of it in a way. Some tour events that are on TV can kind of replicate that, the Grand Slams a little bit, but it is different when you're out there from all accounts. The Hearts as the pin. Vic is up there. I know I talk about Vic a lot, but Vic's there. So it does play a little differently. And you could say, well, this team didn't get to junior championships because these other teams were in their way. Well, those other teams are here playing them now too. So it does kind of hurt the way we might think of them as a threat. I do think, though, as you look at the pool, that certainly a 4-4 record is I think well within reach. And you win one more game, you get to 5-3. You're probably going to get into it. That'll get you at least a tiebreak, if not into that championship pool. So it'll be fun to see. It's always great to see new teams there. And hopefully this team takes advantage of this opportunity that the 18-team field has presented.
Yeah, like I mean, that's what you can hope for. And I think Team Peterson at this point is probably playing with house money.
Yeah.
So, if you go in free and easy and you're looking ready to knock off whoever, you don't really care. We could see something special happen.
Yeah. Threat or the fear that I would have for them, their first game is against UConn, and that's a game that you'd hate to sort of trip up on.
Yeah.
And, that first game in this environment that can kind of be troublesome with the ice, all that kind of stuff. You don't want to lose that. Their next two are against Ontario and Canada. And if you can use those as learning the ice, learning the environment, great. And if you come out of that 1-2, then just take care of your business the rest of the way. So it'll be fun to see.
It'll be fun to see, but I'm not betting on them to make it to the championship pool.
All right. Well, Scott, is that because you're betting on the next team, Northwest Territories, Calgary Galusha, there for approximately the 483rd time at the Scotties? Love Calgary Galusha being there. It's so much fun to have her in the field, and same lineup, I believe, as last year, with Joanne Rizzo there. Shona Barber is there as well. So some familiar faces on the Northwest Territories squad. Scott, any expectations for Calgary Galusha this year?
Sean, I do have expectations for Calgary Galusha this year. So their lineup is different than it was last year. Sarah Colton is not going to play at this event. I really tried to find out why, and I wasn't able to find out why, but I believe it's a travel thing. So
Okay.
Shona Barber has come out of retirement. She announced her retirement after the Scotties last year, and will come back to play lead. They also added Margot Fleming, a player out of Ontario, who's studying satellite observations for snow monitoring up in the Northwest Territories for the University of Waterloo. So they've added her to her team.
She's a colleague for you, or with you.
Yeah, she could be. It's been pretty interesting stuff. So she'll be playing second, and Joanne Rizzo will be playing third, and Calgary Galusha will be back to playing skip this time. Of course, last year we saw her throw third rocks at the Scotties. She was dealing with an injury at the time. So by all accounts, she's 100% healthy this year, ready to go out and make some shots the way that Calgary Galusha does. Sean, this will come back to my point about skill. No one more skilled at throwing than Calgary Galusha on the women's side. So, and on the men's side for that matter. So I'm really excited to see what she can do at 100% strength with a pretty strong lineup behind her. And I do expect them to be challenging for that championship pool. And I may have picked them. You're going to have to tune in for the rest of the episode.
All right. Very interesting to get them as a pick. They open up against Northern Ontario on Friday night. I kind of think there's an advantage to the 8 teams that are going to start on Friday night. You get just that extra spreading out of the games. And so I do think there's a bit of an advantage there.
Yeah, you get to play that one game day, Friday and Saturday.
Yeah.
So
yeah. So good stuff there, Scott. Let's move on then. And I'll just to confirm that it is Calgary Galusha's 14th appearance at a Scotties,
yes.
Just so that nobody yells at me. So let's move on to Jill Brothers, Team Nova Scotia. This is Jill Brothers' 5th appearance at the Scotties. She was there last in 2019 out in Sydney, went 2-5 as the skip. Also there 2016, 2014, and 2007. And Scott, this is an interesting makeup on this team. You have Erin Carmody as the third. She was there a couple of years ago, but maybe most famously, she was throwing fourth back in 2010 on that PEI team that was skipped by Kathy O'Rourke that had that great run to the finals that we talked about a couple of weeks ago.
Mm-hmm.
And another familiar face at lead, Emma Logan, who of course played last year with Marianne Arsenault, who is her aunt. And Emma has a hearing aid that she wears, and the team has a communication device that they can use. Really cool story of how they were able to manage the communication with Emma last year. So it'll be nice to see her back in the field in this event. And Jennifer Bryan makes out the rest of the team there at second. And if we talk about fifths and coaches, Scott, another famed coach here, the great Kim Kelly is going to be on the bench for Team Nova Scotia and Jill Brothers this year. So this should be a fun team. I've always enjoyed watching Jill Brothers play. Never really a team that has threatened to win the event, but a team that will give you a good game.
Yeah, a really talented player, Jill Brothers. She was having some, discussions or thoughts, like trying to think about whether or not to go. She was offered the spot, took a little bit of time to discuss. It's not an easy snap decision for every player. Did eventually decide, yes, we're going to accept this berth and we're going to go. I think, middle of the pack. If they happen to catch like something like Erin Carmody's run back in 2010, they'll be a real fun team to watch, and have the talent to be able to do something special. That said, I'm not going to bet on it in this pool, in this field, but it's not out of the realm of possibility, but I wouldn't expect it. And Kim Kelly's going to be their fifth player, and their coach is Daryl Nolan from New Brunswick, who has been the guest host on Two Girls in a Game podcast the last few weeks. So if you want to hear some of his thoughts on the bubble, go and listen to their show.
Yeah, and they open up on Friday night against Team Alberta, so maybe you can get Laura Walker struggling with the ice as they learn that first draw. Always really interesting. So see if they can get trip up there, and then they get UConn. So maybe we're in a situation that we look up and, oh my goodness, Jill Brothers is 2-0 playing Carrie Galusha on Sunday morning. Maybe Carrie Galusha has a good record at that point too. Who knows? Things could go crazy.
Yeah, that's the TV game then. That'd be fun.
That would be fun. So next up, Northern Ontario. This is Krista Burns taking the spot after the great Krista McCarville and her team declined the invite from the Northern Ontario Curling Association. Scott, not a lot can be said positively about the last year, but in an effort to try as best as I can to be optimistic, to look at the good side of things, in a terrible, terrible year, at the very least, we were not subjected to the Northern Ontario live stream for their provincial playdowns.
Gee, Sean, I thought you were going to say, like, at least the team wasn't hurt in their airplane accident that took place on their way home from the Scotties last year. But sure. Not having to watch the terrible quality playdowns is also a good thing.
Yeah. So Krista Burns is going to skip this team. Not a lot of experience, a couple appearances at the juniors. She also won, though, Scott, the 2017 U Sports Championship, skipping the dearly departed Laurentian University. Very sad story if you've been reading about what's going on with Laurentian University, but she does have that experience there. Pretty young team. Megan Smith at third, Sarah Guy at second, and Amanda Gates, the most experienced player on this team. We've seen her with Tracy Fleury in the past and Tracy Horgan as well. So, Scott, I don't know what you would expect out of this team. They did bring in Kira Brunton, who was in the juniors last year skipping. She's been at the juniors a couple times, won the under 18 championship back in 2017. So you have some junior experience and some success at the junior level spread throughout this team, but first time here, I don't really know what to make of them. This is a team, I think, that I would put with Beth Peterson, that a team that maybe they could go on a run in this pool. And maybe we look up on Wednesday afternoon and they're the feature game threatening for a spot.
I mean, Sean, that's a nice pipe dream, but I don't think it's going to happen. This is one of four teams in the field that's not ranked on the World Curling rankings right now. Three-time Canadian junior participant, as you said, for the entire team, except for Amanda Gates. And Yeah, that's most of what I can say. Kira Brunton played with Lauren Mann this year, moved down to Ontario from
Yeah.
Northern Ontario to participate in that team. Probably the most interesting player on this team. So yeah, I'm not expecting much. Hopefully we'll get them, in a lot of updates. I don't think we'll see them on TV.
No, I agree that we probably will not see them on TV. The only potential spot that I can see looking at their schedule would be against Canada Sunday night, depending on how their first 2 games go. But otherwise, yeah, it's hard to find a TV game for them.
Oh, Sean, you're going to get Laura Walker and Rachel Holman that night.
Yes, you probably are. I think that is correct. So let's move on. Final team to talk about in Pool A, the team from Yukon, the elder statesfolk of this particular field. It is Laura Eby and her squad who are going to come down representing the Yukon out of the White Horse Curling Club. Not a team with a lot of experience. Laura's been there a couple times, couple appearances at the Scotties. Combined record of 2-10. I believe both of those wins came over Nunavut in the field. And the team is composed of folks not with a lot of experience, sort of start to finish in this field. So Scott, I think we're looking at a team that if they can win a game, that's a win for them. Well,
Yeah.
obviously it's a win because they won a game.
Yeah, for sure. And so, Sean, she's not been to the Scotties. It's the Curling Club Championships.
Oh yes, excuse me, my apologies.
So this whole team participated in the club championships, the national club championships, twice. So for me, what I think of when I look at this team is like, this is an amazing experience and a great dream, I'm sure, for all of these players. Soak it in. Enjoy yourself. It's too bad that it's not a regular Scotties where you'd get the chance to, go and have drinks in the patch and interact with the fans and all that stuff. But, enjoy it and represent as best you can.
Yeah, just go have a fun time. And, remember we played against David St. Louis and his team before they went to their first Brier, and they said their goal was to get to a 10th end. And, so that was the proper attitude for that team. And, if these women have that type of an attitude that they're just going to go try to have a great time, it'll be a lot of fun. And if Scott, I couldn't find a TV game for Northern Ontario, I definitely can't find a TV game for this team.
No, maybe, they're challenging in an extra end when all the games are done. Other than that, and they get on. That would be cool, right? That would be pretty fun.
Yeah, and we saw it last year with Lori Eddy, who we'll talk about, of course, that maybe you shift over. Maybe you look up and it's the 6th end and she's playing Rachel Holman and oh my God, the score is 4-3.
Yeah.
Right. Like, and how did that happen? So it'll be fun to sort of keep tabs on this team. So that's Pool A. Let's head on over to Pool number B and the 9 teams that are over there. Scott, let's start with Team Tracy Fleury, the highest ranked team in Pool B. Of course, Tracy Fleury opting out of the bubble, which means Chelsea Carey is going to skip wildcard team number 1 or Manitoba team number 1, I guess. They're the highest ranked Manitoba team there, I think. Or maybe it's Carey Anderson. But either way, it's 1 or 1A. And Scott, this team's really, really good. And Chelsea Carey is really, really good. All she does is win games at Scotties, even though last year she went 5-6. Overall, 47-17 as a skip at the Scotties Tournament of Hearts. The fear that for me at least, that we talked about a couple of weeks ago is just the communication and learning the releases and the paths that these teams, the players on the team, how they throw, the communication patterns, making sure that everyone's on the same page. It's a quick turnaround to try to learn all that. But the 3 players at the front end and Chelsea Carey, all of them individually are great players. So certainly a team that I would expect to see in the championship pool. And when we get to the second Saturday, a team that should still be in contention for a playoff spot.
Yeah, Sean. So here's a stat for you. Chelsea Carey has won 2 Scotties, both times with new teams. 2016, 2019. First year playing with a new team. I don't see any reason why she can't do it again. We've talked about this team for Tracy Fleury and how Selena Nigovin playing third is a real key to their team. If she's making shots and feeling it, her confidence has often gone over to Tracy Fleury and sort of helped her with her shots. I don't think Chelsea Carey needs any help with her confidence. She's very confident.
Yeah,
but
she should be. Why not?
And she should be. But if this team is able to sort of support her and put her in a position where she has to make, makeable shots, they have a chance to win the whole thing, Sean.
Yeah, absolutely. It's just a question of can they put it together, and it's different playing a season with the team in a lead up to a Scotties as opposed to just 5 weeks ago or whatever it was, saying, hey, can you come in and play? It's a little different.
Oh, absolutely. But at the same time, all the teams are in the position of, we haven't really played a lot. So I could really see this. And then I could see, Curling Canada thinking, oh boy, what's going on? But this team will be challenging for the whole thing, not just a playoff spot in my mind.
Yeah, you do raise an interesting point. This isn't like a Shannon Burchard coming on with Jennifer Jones in 2018 type situation where, Caitlin Laws comes back and she's going to play third at the World Championship. Little different potentially when you're talking about the skip. Or maybe not. Just ask Nina Roth. Definitely one of the top teams. And even though I have some reservation, not even reservations, I'm really curious to see how they work together as a foursome. I think that is the story of this event. For me, it's the most interesting thing to watch as we get into this event and what will happen with this team. I think it's a great ad. They have Sherry Maddaw there as the coach.
Yeah.
Really good ad, a lot of experience, very level-headed, has seen everything. So she'll be great for the communication side of things. And I mean, if you look at the schedule, kind of breaks, I think, really well for them. That, but who knows? They get Nunavut in the first game on Saturday morning. Now, you would normally say, well, Nunavut maybe a bit of a layup, but Nunavut and Laurietti challenged folks last year. So that game might actually be more interesting than you would normally think when you just say, oh, like one of the best teams in the world against Team Nunavut. So just keep your eyes on that. And just to see how Chelsea Carey comes out of the gate. It won't be the TV game, but I think it's the game potentially to watch on Saturday morning.
Yeah, one of the ones you and I, for sure, are most interested in that morning to see, do they come out and just dominate? Do they pick up the ice really well? What are all these things that Chelsea Carey is really good at? Is she able to execute those things? And I think that will, tell us what we're going to expect for the rest of the week.
Yes. So let's move on then to the actual Team Manitoba. We've gone through 4 Manitoba teams, and now we're finally at Team Manitoba in this field. The one, the only, the great Jennifer Jones, the soon-to-be all-time Scotties win leader, with a bit of a different lineup this year. Caitlin Law is still there. The newly engaged Jocelyn Peterman will be there, but Dawn McEwen will not be there. She has opted out. She is expecting a child along with husband Mike. So congratulations to them. And Scott, a familiar face coming in, Lisa Weigel. It was announced last year that this would be a 5-person team, but given Dawn opting out of the bubble this year, can't think of anybody better to have on your squad to come in and play in that lead position. So this is a team where over the past couple of years, we've wondered what's been going on with Jennifer Jones. She had struggled a little bit, missed the playoffs a couple of years ago at the Scotties, but then last year came out, lost her first game to Rachel Homan, and then didn't lose again until the final game of the championship pool, I believe. So
Mm-hmm.
it's, you know, she still got it. It's
Yeah.
still in there.
Yeah, it's Jennifer Jones. I don't know what more we need to say. Like Lisa Weagle is not a downgrade from Dawn McEwen.
No.
You know, that maybe knowing each other a little better maybe is it, but Jennifer's watched Lisa throw enough. They've played each other enough times.
Yeah.
They got Renora Westcott as their alternate. Will be, you know, good on the bench there. Victor Schell, the coach, of course, will still be there. And yeah, I mean, it's Jennifer Jones. Jennifer Jones going to Jennifer Jones. She'll be there over the weekend.
Yeah, I fully agree with that sentiment. And I do look forward to when they play Jennifer Jones. And that will be a TV game, I'm sure.
That she is Jennifer Jones.
Or excuse me, when they play Rachel Homan. Sorry.
There we go.
Team Ontario in the crossover. That will be a great TV.
Yeah, I'm not planning anything for that weekend.
All right. So let's move on to maybe one of the more interesting teams in the field coming out of British Columbia. Scott, this is your account. The team's out of the Pacific province. Corinne Brown, her team, Canadian and I believe world junior champion, very strong performances at the junior level. This is very similar to what we're going to see with Mackenzie Zacharias. Second time, I believe, coming into this event, but teams that are trying to make that transition from junior to the elite level play. And it can be tough. It takes some time, but I think this pool sets up really nice for them to get to the championship pool. And if they can squeeze out a game against Jennifer Jones or Chelsea Carey in that initial round robin, they go 1-1 against those two teams. We could look up on Friday night and they're in a great spot potentially for the playoffs.
We could, yeah. We could. I'm not really holding my breath, but it's possible. So last year, obviously they made the championship pool, ended up 6-6 because I believe they had a tiebreaker they had to win. One World Junior appearance, only went 3-6 in 2013, but did win the Canadians that year. So a bit of a lineup change this year too, Sean. Ashley Klimchuk, who was their lead last year, had twins actually in September. So
that makes you twice as happy.
Twice as happy to have twins. So I'm told. So their quote unquote new lead, I use that in quotes, is Samantha Fisher, who played for the team in juniors and was on that 2013 winning team. So I would say no real drop off there at lead for this. Steph Jackson Bear is in at the 5th. She was at the Scotties in 2014 with Kessa Van Osh, a very experienced player. Her mom is also a very well respected coach of curling. So good pedigree. Yeah, I think last year really helped this team, Sean. They're sort of, for me, on the bubble of the championship pool. We'll get to why in a minute, but yeah, I think they can make some noise. If they do get into that championship pool, they'll give anyone a game. I don't think they'll necessarily win them all, but they'll be in it. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I totally agree. They open up with Quebec. They get a interesting draw. They're the team that doesn't play the first draw for the pool. So they don't actually kick off until Saturday night in draw 4. So a late start for them. Maybe that gives them a chance to sit back and watch a little bit and maybe learn the ice. I don't think teams are allowed in the building when they're not playing, but get a chance to watch the TV games, get a sense of what teams are saying about the ice before they have to go play on it. see if that maybe serves an advantage, or if you get all cooped up for those 24 hours where other teams are already playing and you're just raring to get out there and you're sort of stuck in the hotel. We'll see if that makes a difference to them at all. I'd be curious to see what if any impact that has on their game.
Yeah, it might be advantageous, right, to see what other teams are finding tricky about the ice, and then, you know, in your practice sessions, work a little more on that. But yeah, it definitely something different. This is something we haven't had to deal with, you know, these buys at the Scotties in a while. You know, we used to have them back in a 12-team field, but yeah, so not starting till fourth draw, it'll be different for sure.
Yeah, and as a result, they get 2 split days in the event as well. Tuesday, Thursday for them
and
are split days.
So another thing about this team, Sean. So this is the only team whose home club didn't open this year.
Right.
That's the Kamloops Curling Club. So, yeah, so they have affiliated with MacArthur Island Curling Club in Kamloops this year for this year. So, you know, all the other teams had their clubs open, were able to go and throw some stones, and this team had to switch, to somewhere else. So, just an interesting tidbit. I don't think it'll matter at all, but
probably not. And I mean, one of the teams in this field doesn't live within 1,000 miles of their home club. So what does that really mean when you think about it?
Yeah. Okay.
All right, let's move on to by far the greatest team in the field, or the most entertaining team in the field. Suzanne Burt out of PI. I mentioned her earlier. She won the provincial championship in a best of 5 series, swept it to get into this field. She was 9th on the CTRS points for last season, which would have gotten her a wild card spot. But this year is in again as Prince Edward Island. Always fun, Scott, to see Suzanne Burt in this event, because the one thing that we know about her is she is going to have rocks in play, and there are going to be points in a Suzanne Burt game.
Yeah, I mean, ice water running through her veins, right? She's not scared to draw against 5 on her last. No. We see rocks in play. We see it. She can make those shots, and she knows she can, right? Yeah. So she'll be in the mix for this championship pool. I've got her on the cusp right now on my list. I'm gonna make a decision by the time we get to our picks. Okay. And I'm really excited to watch them play. Marie Christensen the third, Megan Hughes, and Michelle McQuaid back to round out the team. Is the same team we saw the last 2 years, I believe, at least. Yeah, maybe even 3. So, yeah, really fun.
One big addition, Scott.
Yeah, big addition. You say it, Sean. You say
Kathy O'Rourke.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Kathy O'Rourke is going to be there. Give her a live mic through this event as well. Love Kathy O'Rourke. It'll be a lot of fun to see her out there. God, I hope she's the one who goes out during timeouts. It'll be great.
Yeah, pretty good. It'll be fun to have her around for sure.
Yeah. So Scott, just talking about the points and what Suzanne Burt likes to do for her games. I'm convinced that she wants to break the record for most points at a Scotties in a single event. But if you just look at last year, as just an example, so she gets into the championship pool at 5-2, and then loses her 4 games in the championship pool. And in the initial round robin, she scored 57 points in 7 games. So about 8 points a game, roughly, just under 8 points a game. In the championship pool, she scored 19 points in 4 games. So about 5 a game. So a significant reduction in what she was able to do in terms of scoring points. So for her to be successful, it's clear that how she wants to play and what she wants to do is to score points. And I do wonder if there's a book on that where teams are going to try to prevent her from doing that. Very difficult to do in the 5-rock rule at this point in where we are in curling. But I do wonder if teams will try to test her patience a little bit. And I know if I was playing against her and she had the hammer, I'm coming in and not putting up guards at all and making her try to play in the house as much as possible to prevent her from cracking those 3s and 4s that she is more than capable of doing.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. I think that yes, that would be the way to do it. But a team like Jennifer Jones, Sean, they're not going to do that. You know, they're going to play to their
No.
strength, and that's
Yeah. A
chucking it
Jennifer
up.
Jones, Suzanne Burt game could be 22-21.
I think that should be a TV game. That'd be really fun.
Yeah, I totally agree. So they play each other on, what's that, Wednesday afternoon
Ooh,
or Thursday afternoon? It's an afternoon game.
I have a meeting Wednesday afternoons at 1. I hope it's not conflicting.
That'd be bad.
Manitoba PI Wednesday at 3:30 p.m.
3:30 Eastern time. Get off that call, throw on TSN. It's a beautiful thing.
Heck yes.
Now, Scott, Suzanne Burt opens up her event against what I'm assuming is the other team that you think could make it through to the championship pool. Scott, it's her world. We're just living in it. It's Sherry Anderson, 3-time defending, I believe. I don't know. They didn't have the event last year. So still 3-time defending Canadian senior champion playing out of Saskatchewan. We've seen her so many times at this event at various positions. She's been there as a skip, been there as a third a bunch of times with Stephanie Lawton. Scott, Sherry Anderson is just so much fun. She is going to play until a doctor says that bone is sticking out of your knee. You cannot play anymore. And she'll say, tape it up. I got a time. I got to get out there. I just love Sherry Anderson as somebody who just loves the sport. She is almost the embodiment of the Vic essay at the end of people who love the sport, just go play it. Yeah, I'm very partial to all Team Saskatchewans, but particularly when it's Sherry Anderson.
Yeah, for sure. And sort of a beneficiary, I'll say, of Robin Silvernagel's team breaking up. You know, they probably wouldn't be here if not for that. But they'll be fun to watch. Nancy Martin is playing third. I think we've most recently seen her playing mixed doubles with Terrell Griffith. And
yes, first Scotties actually for Nancy Martin, which is hard to believe.
Yeah, so that's pretty amazing that she gets to do that. And Brienne Knapp, Meekin, I never know how to say it. So her first full field appearance, she's been there as an alternate twice. She won Canadian Junior with Caitlin Laws in 2009. So fun for her to get her first full field Scotties appearance. And Sean, my favorite stat is Sherry Anderson has 9 grandchildren. Do you think that is the most in the field? It's got to be, right?
Yeah, I would even venture a guess that you could add up everyone else's grandchildren in the field, and it wouldn't come to 9.
Yeah, it's pretty great, pretty awesome for Sherry Anderson to be back on our TVs.
Yes, last time in Penticton went 3-8 as the skip there, and Amber Holland is going to be there as the alternate, of course, winning the Scotties back in 2011. That great Charlottetown Scotties, famed one out there. So it'll be nice to see Amber Holland back in the Scotties as the alternate there. So let's move on, Scott, to a team coming out of Quebec, Laurier Saint-Georges, coming out of Quebec this year. This is a team we don't really know much about. Quebec had an interesting selection process this year. It was almost like a job interview where teams submitted their resumes and they were selected. And Laurier Saint-Georges comes out of that. They get to make an appearance at the Scotties. Scott, you lived in Montreal. You have a bit of a beat on Quebec curling. What do you know about this team?
So my favorite thing about this team, Sean, is I went to their website. And
is your favorite thing that they have a website?
Hold on. So they've got a little profile of all of them. And they each have a rock star nickname, which I'm all in on this.
Absolutely.
So Lori, the skip, her rock star nickname is Smiley. So look for her to be smiling out there, and her hobby is dance. I like these
Nice.
hobbies too. Third, Haley Armstrong,
Yeah.
from Ottawa, I believe. Did she play at the Rideau Club?
I'm not sure. She's listed as living in Carleton Place, so that'd be a bit of a
Yeah,
hike if she
I
lives out there.
think I've seen her. I think I've seen her around Ottawa anyway. The
Okay.
curling club is not just in the city,
Yeah.
but
It's a big city.
rockstar nickname. Her rockstar nickname is the Armor. Love it. Love it.
Yeah.
And her hobby, Sean,
Yeah.
having a good time. That's
a good
my hobby
hobby.
too.
Yeah.
Yeah. Emily Riley, next up, rockstar nickname is Eminem. Like the letter M, the ampersand, and the next letter M. So I'm assuming she likes M&M candies.
Yeah. Is that her hobby?
Her hobby is music.
Okay.
Playing or listening, I'm not sure. And then Cynthia St. George, the lead, her rock star nickname, Cinnamon. And I think it's because her hair is a little bit reddish, like a cinnamon color.
Okay.
And her hobby is also dance, same as her sister. I
Nice.
love this. I think that every player should have rock star nicknames in their bios. Curling Canada challenge laid.
Yeah, I fully am in on that on that idea. So all these players have played in a junior championship, a national junior championship.
Oh, right. Their curling accomplishments are something I should have researched too.
Yeah, so they've all played. Haley Armstrong went as the skip for Team Ontario, and the rest went out of Quebec in 2019, all playing together. So it's an interesting team to put together, see how they do in their debut. A team that similar to last year, that we just don't know much about them. And you know what, Scott, if they're as much fun as the team was last year, I'm fine with whatever their record is.
Yeah. Go and have fun. Become, the team that's famous for having the most fun. And more Scotties should be in their future.
Yeah, and there's an award for that if you have the most fun.
Yeah, there is.
So go win that award. Do your thing.
Yeah.
So let's move on to New Brunswick and the team coming out of New Brunswick this year. It's Melissa Adams is going to skip, making her second appearance at a Scotties, first time as a skip. Played with Sylvie Robichaud back in 2018 out in Penticton. A team that went 5-3 in the first year of this new format. I believe lost a tiebreaker, if I'm not mistaken, to Ontario in that event. But you can correct me if I'm wrong on that, Scott.
Yes.
But you might know Melissa Adams as a junior world champion back in 1998. She probably won't like that we've said junior champion in 1998, but she won it. So, good for her. Three-time.
So good for her.
3 appearances at the Canadian Junior, the 1 win, and of course the gold medal in 1998. But nothing else since then. The rest of the team, not a lot of experience at the national level. So a team, Scott, that we just don't really know what to expect out of Melissa Adams. Obviously has a lot of talent, has a pedigree in elite level curling, but we just, as I said, don't really know what to expect.
Yeah, and so basically this team, except for Jacqueline Tingley, who was the third, was Sylvie Robichaud's team from 2018. Right. Sylvie, of course, left and went to play with Andrea Crawford this year, which turns out to maybe have been an oopsie. But
I'm sure she was in on the decision to decline the spot.
Yes. So yeah, like you said, they went into the event there in Penticton and played pretty well. We like New Brunswick teams. We like, watching Andrea Crawford play. I have a feeling like they'll be a bit more defensive, this team, but
right.
Yeah, I don't expect them to make it out of the preliminary pool, but
Fair.
they could beat. I would say they probably could beat anybody on any given day. I just don't expect it.
Yeah, you say we like New Brunswick teams. We like them a lot more when they're out of Oromocto, of course. But if we look at the field here for them, they open and close. Open with Newfoundland, Labrador, close with Quebec. If you're looking at the games they're going to need to win to be in the conversation of the championship pool, certainly Newfoundland, Labrador, Nunavut, Quebec, you're going to need those three. And then you're going to have to see if you can scratch something out against the rest of this field. If you can catch Suzanne Burt on a day where it's 10-10 in the 11th end and her last one picks or something, or something crazy happens, which is always possible in those games. Or if Sherry Anderson has a tough week, which is possible, right? She struggled the last time she was there. She's going to need some breaks to threaten to get into that championship pool, but definitely a team that if they're on the schedule and you're coming up against them, don't overlook Melissa Adams by any means.
Yeah, I'd say that's probably the best we can say for this week.
Yeah. All right, so let's move over, Scott, to girl number one. Lori Eddy from Two Girls in a Game, a very entertaining podcast in the world of curling. And Scott, the woman who, along with girl number two, Mary Chivers, who, as a side note, just sending our love to Mary Chivers, the recent death of her father, which is why there was a co-host for the past couple of weeks. So just all positive vibes to Mary. I know the whole curling community really sent a lot of support her way at obviously a difficult time. But Scott, together, the Monday after this event, they're going to just crush all other curling podcasts in downloads as Lori comes out of the bubble and starts telling stories, because that's what happened last year.
Yeah. Oh, when you said they're going to crush all of the curling podcasts, I thought they were going to, crush us for our picks and stuff. But no, in downloads, I agree. They definitely will. And, it's warranted. It's going to be a pretty fun insider's look at what happened in the curling bubble. Even hearing some of their run-up podcasts so far has been pretty interesting to hear, what teams are expecting coming into the bubble. So nice to have, somebody in the biz going to that curling bubble, Sean. Of course, I met Lori and Mary last year at the Briar, and it was really, really fun getting to spend some time with them. I think that what they can hope for is basically what happened last year, right?
Yeah.
Look to knock off a giant, look to play competitive games, play close. And I think they're going in with that kind of mindset. What Lori said on the podcast was that they didn't want to turn down the offer to have the Nunavut berth for fear that Nunavut wouldn't field a team.
Right.
So, they're playing with house money, being there. They're not going to be able to have the kind of fun experience that they had last year, going to the patch and, hanging out with the fans, being sort of the darling of the preliminary round. But that said, maybe they'll knock off, a Sherry Anderson early, or I don't have their schedule up, but they'll give Jennifer Jones a good game, and at the very least, we'll get probably fun stories about Lori playing Jennifer Jones. So, this team will be fun, and hopefully, we get to see them on our TVs.
I would be surprised. So their schedule is Chelsea Carey first up, then Sherry Anderson, and then Newfoundland and Labrador. So if you're looking at where some wins might come from for them, you're looking at Quebec. They have a split day on Tuesday, Quebec, New Brunswick. You could look there for a couple wins. They finish against Jennifer Jones and Manitoba. And yeah, if you're Jennifer Jones, be careful there. Because if you look at what they did last year, they were down 8-7 in the 8th end against Saskatchewan. They were tied with the hammer in the 8th end against Chelsea Carey on the Sunday morning last year. They beat Krista McCarville in Northern Ontario last year. They lost to or excuse me, when I said they to Chelsea Carey, no, I was wrong when I said that. My apologies. It was Jennifer Jones, who they lost to late last year. It was the game against Chelsea Carey. They lost in the 10th end on a steal.
They were running out of time in that end too. That game.
Yes. Yeah. So it's just a very weird situation. They played Carrie Anderson. So it's Carrie Anderson. Excuse me. I got to get this all right. There's too many Manitoba teams to keep track of. They were tied with the Hammer against Carrie Anderson last year in this event. So played Anderson McCarville and Chelsea Carey really tight. Tight game against Andrea Crawford. Tight game against Robin Silvernagle. And got the win, of course, against Quebec in that last draw. So best performance ever by a Nunavut team. And if you're not careful, they'll come up and bite you.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that this is the kind of team that's fun to have from the non-curling powers, a team that can give a good game and, potentially, if they're playing their best, win. Rather than have a team that just comes to, get steamrolled.
Right. Is that your segue into Newfoundland Labrador, Scott?
Yeah.
Because that's not very nice. If that's your segue to Sarah Hill and the team out of the Remax Center in St. John's. This team is Sarah Hill making her debut at the Scotties. She has skipped twice at the Canadian Juniors, a combined record of 5 and 13 in her 2 appearances there. She's playing the Canadian Mixed Championship Mixed Doubles Championship. It's the Mixed. I was right the first time. Championship. The most experience on this team is from the third, Beth Hamilton, making her 4th appearance at a Scotties. She played with Erica Curtis last year as the lead, moving up to 3rd this year. The rest of the team making their debuts at this event. And Newfoundland and Labrador on the women's side has had a rough go of it the past few years. Scott, do you expect that to continue in the bubble?
I expect them to not win any games.
Okay. Wow. I guess that sort of sums that up. Bit of a downer.
Well, yeah. Well, I mean, it's like we've said before from the teams that are making their first appearances, go and have fun. And, maybe you learn something. And if not, keep the entire experience the whole thing, because you don't know when you'll come back, if you'll ever come back. So, have fun.
Yeah. Hey, Scott, I'll tell you though, if they beat Melissa Adams Saturday morning and then they beat Lori Eddy Sunday afternoon, TV game, PEI, Newfoundland Labrador, Monday afternoon.
Sure, Sean. You can you can at me if you're right about that on Twitter. That'll be great.
I'm just saying the schedule breaks for them to potentially get off to a nice little start for them.
There's a chance, sure.
Yeah. So there you have it. Those are the 18 teams, 9 teams in the 2 pools that are heading to Calgary. So Scott, that's a lot to go through, but let's talk about what we expect to happen now. So the one thing I'm sure of is that Jennifer Jones will break the record. The other thing that I'm sure of is I'm going to watch a lot of this, if not all of it, every minute of it. But what I'm less sure about is who is going to make the playoffs. So Scott, let's get to our picks segment, and let's start with who gets into the championship pool. So let's start with Pool A. Who you got getting through?
Canada, Alberta, Ontario, and give me the Northwest Territories over those 2 wildcard teams.
Okay. So I'm going to say the exact same thing, other than I'm going to go with Mackenzie Zacharias to get through as wildcard 2.
And you're kicking out Carrie Galusha?
I sadly am. Yeah. No, I don't want to. but I'm
No,
going
Sean,
to.
guest of the podcast, former guest of our podcast.
Yeah, she's great. She was on with Twine Time this week, so you can check that
Mhm.
out.
Yeah.
Always a great storyteller. Scott, Pool B, who you got?
It's pretty much chalk for me here. Wild card one, Manitoba, BC, and Prince Edward Island.
Yep, I totally agree with that. So the most important part of this, let's get to the playoffs and then the eventual winner. So typically we would try to pick the 4 playoff teams, but there ain't 4 playoff teams. So Scott, who are your 3 playoff teams? Who you got to win?
Sean, I got an all Manitoba playoffs.
Shocker.
Wild card one, Canada and Manitoba.
Wild card 1, Manitoba, Team Canada. Really? Okay, go. I'm here with you.
And a wild card one is my champion, Chelsea Carey.
Chelsea Carey to win. Wow. Okay. Interesting. I am not going to pick that. I'm not going to pick an all Manitoba final or an all Manitoba playoffs. I think that Rachel Homan certainly is going to get into the playoffs here. Just too good to not be in the playoffs, I think, with a Scotties record of 75-20, Scott. 75-20.
I know it's the pregnancy plus the new player that's causing me to lean away from Rachel Homan, and I will probably be wrong.
So I'm going to go Rachel Homan, Canada, and yeah, I'm going to, it's tough, right? Between wildcard 1 and Manitoba. I'm going to lean with Jennifer Jones. Just go with Jennifer Jones. Give me a Jones Homan final, good old fashioned Jones Homan final, and give me Jennifer Jones to win this event this year. She won the last kind of weird Scotties during the Olympic year. This is a weird Scotties too. Give me Jennifer Jones here.
Wow.
Get her 7th.
And she would become the only woman with 7 Scotties titles. So
the Tom Brady of curling.
Jill Officer also has 6. Oh yeah, the Tom Brady. Good parallel. I like this.
So she would be, Scott, if she makes it into the final, it would be her 10th final.
Wow.
Yeah, she's incredible. Really good at curling. This is my takeaway from all of this, is that Jennifer Jones is good at curling.
Right on.
Yeah.
I'm right there with you, Sean.
Yeah.
Jennifer Jones, good at curling.
Yeah. If you take anything away from this hour and a half podcast, it's that Jennifer Jones is good.
Yeah. It only took us an hour and a half, an hour, 37 minutes to get to a Jones Homan final from Sean. What a prognosticator this guy is.
That's the type of top level analysis that you come here for.
You only find that
Rachel Homan and Jennifer Jones are good.
Yeah, I really wanted to, pick Rachel Homan, but Chelsea Carey's magic with new teams, and their team's talented. I think this is the weird kind of situation, and I can see it happening. And I would also like to, have Curling Canada be confused about who to send to a possible world championship.
We talked last week, angsty summer at Curling Canada could happen, and just throw some more angst on it if you have that situation. I don't think it'd actually be that angsty. Like Tracy Flaherty's going to play if they win, I think.
Yeah.
Well, so now we'll cross that bridge when we come to it. So before we go, just want to say one other thing, Scott. Dynasty Curling, which does the uniforms, released the design this year. Oh my goodness. These might be the greatest Scotties uniforms of all time. They look absolutely phenomenal. They are incredible. Like, it's a retro design with some of the design elements that they've used in the past couple of years on the back. These things, and I watched the 2001 Scotties final this weekend. These are just night and day in terms of how great they are. I was floored when I saw them. They are remarkable.
Yeah. All credit to the design team over there. They do look awesome. Some of them, I think maybe it's the Manitoba one. If you zoom in on the shirt, it gives the impression that it's like a sweater pattern.
Yes.
It looks
Well,
knit.
they're all designed like that.
Oh man, they're great.
Yeah.
And I may just hop on the old Dynasty site to order one of those bad boys for myself.
Yeah, I've never wanted to buy a curling jersey, but these look really go look at them and you'll see them on the TV all week. Just absolutely phenomenal. So yeah, congratulations to Dynasty. And only Beth Peterson is going to wear wild card. They've come up with alt Manitoba designs for the other two wild card teams, which is great.
Yeah, really great, really great. Do you know why, Sean? I tried to find why, and actually, our friend Megan texted me and said, "What's going on? I'm confused."
My guess is that wildcard 2 and wildcard 3 just doesn't look good. And because you can make other cool designs of Manitoba and Manitoba imagery, just makes sense to do that. My guess.
So there's Manitoba blue,
Yeah,
and Manitoba, one's yellow and one's brown.
I believe so. Yeah.
I want to say. Anyway,
Yeah. They look great.
Okay, well, there you go, Megan. If you listened an hour and 40 minutes into this podcast, you've got your kind of answer.
Yeah.
She's
They no, it'll be fine. So if you look at it, Jennifer Jones is like the Manitoba where it's the image of the buffalo that's shaped as Manitoba, and then Chelsea Carey's looks like it's another animal. Excuse me, I'm not an animal expert. That is on the back of it with a different design in brown with yellow on the sides, on the stripes on the side. I'm not doing them justice in trying to describe them, but yeah, they have different animals on the back for the Manitoba versions of it. Just absolutely phenomenal design.
Really cool stuff. Really cool stuff.
Yeah, so there's that. I will also say that for draw times, you're looking at 8:30, 1:30, 6:30 local. So that would be whatever it is at your time. That's in the Mountain Time Zone. Every draw is going to be on TSN, ESPN3 for our friends in the United States. They are going to change the draw times when we get to the championship pool, be an hour earlier in the afternoon. So you're looking at a 12:30 and 6:30 local once we get to championship pool play. And a bit of a change on Sunday as well. It's a half hour earlier in the morning and afternoon on Sunday. But overall, great consistency over the course of the week for what we can expect on the TV. So really excited for the Scotties out in Calgary. And as you said at this top, Scott, hopefully it goes off without a hitch.
So, Sean, you mentioned you watched the 2001 Scotties final yesterday. Do you want to talk about that?
Yeah, so I had the pleasure of joining Rocks Across the Pond over the weekend. We talked about the 2001 Scott Tournament of Hearts final between Colleen Jones and Kelly Law. We talked about that game as part of their Run It Back series. Really a very interesting game in that it wasn't a good game, but a couple signature moments from there. One of the most puzzling strategy decisions I've ever seen made at even like at any level of curling. Really just an absolute stunner that you see from Kelly Law in that game. And that is the third of Colleen Jones's Scott Tournament of Hearts championships on Route 2 or 3. That's the first of the four, Pete, for that great Nova Scotia team. So a lot of fun talking with Jonathan and Ryan about that game. So check it out over on their feed. It is available, and a lot of fun talking with those guys. So I appreciate them having me on.
Yeah, I'm really looking forward to listening to that one, Sean. I was going to watch the game myself and then give your pod a listen. Should be good.
Yes. Yeah, so the game's available online, and it's interesting. It was right after Sandra Schmirler dies, and that the sort of the weight of that, you can feel it on the event as a whole. And they do a really great thing in the fifth end break, a profile of the Schmirler team as they were looking to qualify for the Olympic trials in 2001. They brought in Shannon Kleibrink for that run. Really powerful stuff there. So yeah, I encourage you to check out the game and certainly check out that podcast. So Scott, you were not there, as I say on that podcast, because you were driving around in circles because you couldn't be in your house anymore.
Yeah, you pretty much got it. Yeah.
Yes. So there you go. For the Scotties this year, Scott, what we're going to do is every day after the afternoon draw, so starting on Saturday, after the afternoon draw, we're going to do a virtual pod stacking type of a thing where we'll go live after the TSN feed goes out, and we invite you to come join us. We will tweet out the link and post the links on our other feeds, and just come hang out. If you have a question for us, if you want to talk about the games, you'll be live on the internet with us, but that's cool. Just come hang out with us on the Facebook Live. That's the plan, to do it every day after the afternoon draw. Talk about what's going on in the event. If you have other questions about the sport, certainly always happy to talk about everything going on in the world of curling. So Scott, that is our plan for Scotty's coverage, because we're not going to do daily episodes on this feed because it'll be a little too late here in the Eastern time zone.
Yeah. And I mean, I think it'll be really fun to interact with the listeners a little bit. And if you're a little bit shy about being on camera, that's not a problem. You can write a question in the chat as well. And Sean and I can talk about it. So yeah, it should be a lot of fun, something a little different. And looking forward to it. You know, hang out for half an hour, 45 minutes in that range there. We're not going to be on for 2 hours, but
no.
Yeah, it'll be good.
Yeah, and we'll invite some of the other pod people on and some other curling folks on if they want to join us. But the idea is just hang out, talk about everything going on, because for the last 11 months, we haven't actually been able to talk about games. So now we can. Mm-hmm. So we're going to do it. Yeah,
we want to sort of make it feel like we're in the club watching, after watching a game.
Absolutely. So keep an eye out for all that stuff. That'll start on Saturday evening. So there you have it. If you want to join, be part of all that stuff, do follow along on all of our social channels on Twitter, Instagram, at Game of Stones Pod, Game of Stones Podcast. You can find us on the Facebook with the page there. That's where all these shows, these broadcasts are going to be coming from. So do check that out. And of course, do subscribe to this feed. We will have some stuff during the Scotties, over the course of the week. We will release some stuff on this feed as well. So do subscribe wherever it is you get your podcast, do the likes, ratings, all that other good stuff to keep us going, grow the show. And let us know what you want to hear. Reach out, Game of Stones Podcast at gmail.com, and head on over to GameOfStonesPod.com. All of our past episodes are there, plus the links to the merch with the t-shirts, where we are supporting Food Banks Canada through the sale of those. And we have the Canadian Olympic Trial Qualifier Explainer up there as well. So check on all that stuff over at GameOfStonesPod.com. So Scott, that's it for our Game of Stones Podcast, Fergus Curling Club Scotties Mega Preview, presented by Canada 3000 and Zellers, where the lowest price is the law.
Whew. Yeah, I'm tired. That was a long one. Let's go to bed. Time for bed, right?
Well, no, it's early. Come on. I'm all fired up. There's curling coming on.
Yeah. All right. I'll drink a beer. And
there you go.
Yeah.
All right. So thanks, everybody. Enjoy the curling. We'll be with you every step of the way, and we'll see you again on Saturday once this thing gets going. But until then, keep those brooms on the ice and don't dump that intern.
Make the final.